Hello to all the Atlanta United fans. My name is Jurgen Damm, and you are watching Scarves and Spike, an Atlanta United podcast.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. To all those that celebrate a Scarves and Spikes Wednesday. The fans asked for it. We brought him back. Gray, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me back. I wasn't sure if we would be doing this again after the last one.
Everybody said in the chat, bring more Gray. We need
All
more
right.
Gray.
All right. Well, I know I did have the disapproving Sydney, air between his teeth sound a couple of times. So
You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
All right.
So we got a big week coming up. We are part of Sunday Night Soccer. So all eyes are on us, whether that is a good or bad thing. I can't really figure out what it is these days, but we are on Sunday, so it's going to be a little bit different. So Taylor Twellman and Jake Zivin will be on. So we're going to have Jake on in a little bit here. He'll be around 7:30. Come hang out with us, talk about Sunday Night Soccer, talk about the upcoming game. And then we'll get into predictions, and hopefully we get a result in this game here. But first off, again, thank you to all the Patreons that join us. Join the Patreon, the Discord. It's still very loud with everything that's been going on with this team, despite the losing efforts that we've been getting. Check out Scarves and Spikes. Gray writes some great articles about the twos. Everyone else writes some good stuff too. But since Gray here, we're just going to talk up everything that he does. And the Signia, this Sunday, come hang out at the Signia at, let's see, kickoff is at 7. So go hang out there at 5 o'clock. Sydney Tyler will be there. I believe, is our friend back from his road trip?
I don't know. He might be. He might be making a special appearance.
Henry might be back, so come hang out with Henry before the game. Get yourself some food, get yourself some beers, and then head over to the game for 7 o'clock kickoff. And I think that is everything that we have. Oh, and go to the store too. We got some bunch of cool stuff there. We're not wearing any of it, but that's okay. I had to bring out the peach kit was actually my favorite road kit that this team has ever had. So before we get started, everything, what are your thoughts on the peach kit?
The peach kit's a classic. Honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I think the classic, red and black stripes kit from those early days was fantastic, and I liked the peach kit a lot more than the gray and red kit that we had early on too.
Oh, what did they call it? The brick?
I don't know. It was weird. It was hard to see the stuff that was on the kit, at least on the broadcast. So, not a great thing at the beginning of your club's history to have trouble figuring out which player is which.
Oh, the gold one. Remember the gold one
Oh
during
yeah,
COVID?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That one was terrible. You could not
Mhm.
see any name on there.
Absolutely. I think that one's actually very discounted right now on the MLS store. So if people are looking for another kit, there are a lot of good deals on old Atlanta United away kits that they didn't sell.
Well, I don't want to remember anything about 2020 at all, about this team, about anything that was going on in the world. So we will just burn all the what was it, the Kings kit? Yeah, the Kings
Yeah,
kit.
King's kit.
We will never talk of the Kings kit again. So I apologize to everybody that hates that one.
Yeah,
All right. So great. You were not here last week.
Mhm.
So to wrap up the Philadelphia match, I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on that game.
Yeah, I think it's a story of inconsistency, as we've seen, throughout most of the season. We've had stretches of it that you can see a glimmer of hope. Them playing decently well for a fraction of the game, and then everything seems to fall apart, and you wonder, how they forgot to play as a team or forgot to play soccer, and the urgency goes away as well. And so I think that's a bit of what we saw there, and I think that's been a common issue, not just this season, but in previous seasons as well, is just maintaining concentration, consistency, and maintaining the ability to play your game throughout the entire 90, or at least the majority of that 90. And just the second half was, I'm not sure what adjustments were not made or were made at the half that absolutely didn't match what Philly was doing. But the other part that I think is interesting is in the match, there were quite a few really good chances for goals in the first half, and I think we might be having a very different conversation right now if a few of those chances had gone in.
Oh, absolutely. And then even at the end of the game, I mean, Latte Lath had a great opportunity to score there right at the end and just wasn't able to get it in. But now, as we start heading towards more midweek games, because there will be a midweek game next week against Orlando, Cincinnati's also got a midweek game coming up next week. I am interested to see how teams handle coming to Atlanta. Now, previously in old Atlanta United teams, a lot of times they would sit their starters in Atlanta because they were just chalking up to a loss. Where the Fortress, we can't win in Atlanta. It just doesn't happen. We're going to sit our guys, give Atlanta a little bit easier of a win, and great. Well, now we are in the complete opposite. Now they are sitting players, and that's what Philadelphia did. They definitely had some rotation, at least in the first half, where they sat their guys, wanted to make sure that they kept it close. Mission accomplished. They go into the second half 0-0. Then the changes started coming. They bring in the striker. They score a goal. It was a penalty, so it wasn't anything. But the chaos reigned for about the first 15 to 20 minutes of that game. And then they just played defense and tried to hold Atlanta to win a 1-0 win. But now, how do we see teams come into Mercedes-Benz Stadium now? Do they continue to do this? Because Cincinnati does have a midweek game against Dallas. And then they have, on the following Saturday, they have a match against DC. So they have a little bit shorter of a turnaround, as does Atlanta, because they'll be playing Orlando on Wednesday. Do you think that this is going to be starting to be a trend where people look at Atlanta and say, I'm not worried about them. I'm going to give my guys some rest and we'll see what happens. And if not, we'll make the changes later.
Yeah, and I think, for one reason or another, we are a team that is a golden opportunity for the opposing side's goalkeeper to have a career match against us, and I think we saw that against Philadelphia yet again, where that goalkeeper had phenomenal saves and just kept them in the first half and locked it down in the second. So. Even if Pedro Galese isn't playing for Orlando next week, or if they decide to rotate their keepers for any of these other teams, I am curious to see what kind of standout performances we get from the netminders of the other teams in the road run ahead.
Well, and Joe says the first half was improved over recent matches against heavily rotated Philly, but second half we folded like a chair. And absolutely, you saw the change come in, and I think it was just one change. I think it was just one that came in there, but everything how they attacked, it just felt like it was in FIFA. You changed from parking the bus to attack, attack, and then they're attacking, and it just did not look good from Atlanta United for about 20 minutes. They got back into it a little bit after that. After the goal, they had some opportunities there for a little bit. It was back and forth, and then it was like the last 7 minutes, it was pretty much all Atlanta trying to get that last minute goal, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that continues to be an issue, that we're chasing games. We aren't able to keep control and lock it down. And even when we are in those scenarios where we're trying to hold on to a lead or hold on to a draw, we somehow manage to sneak a goal in for the other team there late in the match. And so I think just trying to maintain that consistency and trying to keep control of the match will be something that they work on as they continue to refine and try to find a system that works for all of these players.
Absolutely. And yes, Omar, you are in the correct AA meeting. This is what we're here for. But until Jake comes on with us, I wanted to change things around a little bit here because Gray is the academy expert here. And we need to talk about some positive things because I do not make the time, and Gray judges me for it every day, that I don't get an opportunity to watch the twos. But this guy does, and they are doing the exact opposite of what Atlanta United is doing. So, Gray, with that, how are the twos doing?
Well, the twos are on a 4-match unbeaten streak, so that's fun to watch. A lot of those are draws that end in PKs because in MLS Next Pro they're making every match that ends tied at the end of 90 go to PKs, and you get an extra point if you win the penalty shootout. And we've had mixed results on that, but it's good to see the guys having some late game comebacks there and hanging on in the second half when they've been able to scratch back some leads. It's been a great year for Javi Armas, and he's really become a leader in that group. One of our former draft picks. And speaking of the Union, thank you, Union, for Wesse. He is playing out of his mind as a future star at the wing for us down on the twos. And so really enjoying his game. If you want to watch a talented young player coming into his own, Gabriel Wesse is fantastic. And Hibbert's getting some really important reps down there as well. There are some shaky moments here and there, but overall, he just needs to be in the net. He needs to be facing as many shots, as many attacks, and as many opportunities to play out of the back as he can, with a defense that seems to change every match in front of him. But I like what I'm seeing from Ronan Wynn, our second round pick from this year, and I think we've got a really interesting mix of players down there that I wish we were seeing a bit more from our academy players, but Braden Dunham has been one of those really nice highlights. So he's playing well before he heads off to Furman this fall, and we're seeing Will Riley continue to do what he's great at as the central midfield anchor for this group alongside Javi Armas.
Is he very physical down there as well with the twos?
Riley, yeah, he's got good physicality, but I think he's very much a field general, kind of like how Nagby was moving guys around and hanging onto the ball and making sure he's going to the right places. And so, yeah, I like what I'm seeing from him. And I see Jack's question about Chongqui and Gordon. I think, we're seeing natural kind of, young player learning with Chongqui. He's not getting consistent starts all the time because they've got a few different guys that they're trying at left back, and they're playing different formations. So 3 at the back or 2 at the back. And so Moises Tablante is covering the left wing back position sometimes. And so not really getting the consistency that, the way Wiley was to be able to see him every week. But I think you see a young guy who's learning, he's growing, and he's trying to figure it out. We haven't seen Gordon in a bit. He's dealing with an injury right now, but hopefully he'll be back soon. I still like, everything that Gordon brings to the table. And I think, as long as he continues training with this group and staying in the picture overall, I think he'll do quite well. Some other folks have asked about Efren Morales recently. He was at the center of our back line this past weekend, and he looked pretty good there. And so I'm curious to see if he hangs around for another year or two, whether we keep him as the center of a back three or if we try him out again as that giant imposing 6 who can drop between the center backs and help build out the back. So we'll see. We'll see what we get there, but I know that he's certainly auditioning for a larger role now that Cobb seems to have passed him as the preeminent center back prospect coming up from the academy.
So with the twos, you talked about wanting to see more academy players. I've seen the complaint online that the kids don't play enough with the twos. Now this has been also with prior years as well. That it's why aren't we playing the kids more? Are we bring some players in that we sign? But obviously, the youth is what we are trying to grow. Eventually, get up, to the first team. Why do you think that is with Atlanta?
I think Steve Cook wants them to earn the opportunity. I don't think the assumption is that they get the spot, and that seems to be the case through the academy. Is they want these guys pushing, they want them hungry, and they want them earning their opportunity every single time. And sometimes that can be a little bit counterintuitive for guys who really just need minutes. Caden Moore is going to become a full homegrown player when the calendar turns over at the end of the year, and he's stuck behind a veteran guy named Mazzaferro, who I believe came over from Inter Miami too. And so, Mazzaferro has played very well. Not to discount him there. I think he's been a leader of the back line, but at a certain point, you want to see Caden Moore getting those minutes at left center back if he's set to get a promotion at the end of the year. Another issue that we're seeing. It's been great for Tagashi. He's been playing extremely well as the center forward there, and I'm hoping that he's earning a lot of attention from Ronnie Dyla to potentially get some more minutes with the first team. And he's certainly been good for the younger players around him. But Rodrigo Neri is a guy who's got a lot to show, and he's a guy who I think has a future with this team if he's able to develop here. And he's been stuck behind Tagashi, as Tagashi has been getting the majority of those minutes the last few weeks.
Well, speaking of Tagashi and Riley, they both played against Cincinnati. I was at that game, and obviously they both had some pretty big moments. The throw-in, I believe, led to the goal that Latte La scored to tie the game. Or no, that was the first goal. The second one was the famous own goal there. But Riley, I thought looked fantastic in the midfield, and it was like, okay, like maybe we need to see a little bit more of this. And then that was also, I guess, to link this all together to current news. Tristan Miumba was also having a fantastic game in there. That was like his opportunity to get back in. A lot of players were gone because of the international break. He comes in. My buddy came in and he came with me to the game. We drove down to Cincinnati. I remember he's like, man, Miumba's just a beast today. Absolute beast. 1 minute later, he's on the ground and getting carted off. And now he's injured again.
Yeah.
And now he's out from anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. So with that, I ask you, how big of a miss is it for Miumba to be out for 2 to 4 weeks?
Well, we've seen that pair developing with Fortune really nicely, and it would have been great to get a few more matches of the two of them together, because I think they were starting to figure out how to have a really nice partnership out there. And we're going to have to start over. Is it Sleesh? Is it Cleek? Does Riley get the opportunity again? I'm not sure, but yeah, I think it's a big loss for Muyumba, just because I like how he plays. I know that there are issues that Dax pointed out and that the fans will point out, but he's a guy who's trying, and you see him working hard out there, and he's got some really nice moments that I wish they weren't. They weren't clouded by some of the lapses and some of the giveaways that we see there, but I think he's a talented player that you want to have in the mix for your roster when he's healthy.
And Connor puts a comment out here, and I appreciate it because I'm a hockey guy. I just watched the Maple Leafs get absolutely destroyed. So maybe that's how it leads into. And then the Thunderbolts is my favorite Marvel comic book. So I get you, Connor, and I understand it. And yeah, absolutely. It's frustrating. And one of the exciting parts is because a lot of people come in here on Sundays after the match or on spaces where you join in as well and say, play the kids. And Gray just gets so excited. He's like, yes, please play the kids. I want to see more of them in MLS. And that's the question that I have is if you think about it for going into next season, because it's hard for a lot of these kids to get into the lineup consistently, and some have been playing obviously because of injuries. We've had quite a few of them on the left and right of the back line. If you had to take a guess and say next season there's one of the kids getting called up and he's going to get the most time, who do you think it is?
Oh, that's a good question. Um,
This is see, we're preparing
I,
for we're supposed to be
yeah,
doing a podcast, me and him.
yeah,
So this is like my practice for it. So you probably get to ask
absolutely,
these again, but
absolutely. No, I think the unexpected candidate there might be Wesse. I think Wesse is on a really sharp, growth trajectory right now, and I like what we're seeing from him. And I think we're going to need that kind of speed and dynamism off the wing, regardless of who we bring in over the next couple of windows. And so he can fill the role that Mosquera is in right now, and I think, yeah, Wesse is a guy who is very interesting. And we also have a scenario where we could have a lot of turnover at goalkeeper. And so I know this isn't an academy guy, but Jaden Hibbert might get some more opportunities next year too. So yeah, if I had to pick two guys, I think who are predominantly playing with the twos right now, I think those two are part of that. And I really liked what we saw from Ronan Wynn in the in the preseason, and I think he's showing enough to come back next year as well. So I think there might be some combination of those three guys, especially because we'll have turnover at the wing, at center back, and at goalkeeper.
next season at the keeper position is going to be very interesting
Mhm.
because you have to imagine we're getting close to the end of Brad Guzan. You have to think that it's there. I can't see Atlanta, especially. I mean, is he going to be 41, 42? I don't know the exact timing of when his birthday is there going into next year. But you got to make that jump eventually and save some money as well, because there's going to be a lot of open spots, a lot. And I mean, Connor brought it up here in the chat that we're going to have a lot of spots opening up. And you see other teams, good teams, being able to take in young players, be able to start them consistently. And I believe there was a player that plays for, is it Orlando? I think you were tweeting about that was supposed to be our draft pick.
Yes, yes. Okay, so Joran Gerber. I'm butchering his name, but
I do it all the time.
he played for Clemson last year, and he was with Oregon State with Javi Armas the year before that, and so really talented midfielder, and he's the second guy, or at least the second guy that Orlando has drafted that I've been a big fan of, put in our mock draft. Duncan McGuire was the first one. They literally stole him the pick before we picked, and I think. Yeah, so I'm still salty about that, but because I'm pretty sure he was the guy that we wanted, because we traded out of that spot immediately after they made that pick. But Gerber, he's had a great season for Orlando so far, and yeah, I think there are a lot of similarities to Riley and to Armas, and so I'm not sure we would have picked him if we'd kept our first rounder anyway. And they probably, rightfully thought that bringing in Cleek for a first round pick was better than taking a gamble on a fifth year senior from college as well. I can understand that, but it's not necessarily playing out that way. And so it just shows there's still value there in the draft if you know how to look for it.
Well, absolutely. When you're a team like Atlanta United that likes to spend as well, and you try to get some MLS depth, I mean, having a few kids being able to play in the lineup, have them on the roster, is absolutely critical for this team. And they've always got one player at least that's usually in that situation. But if you can get a couple that are regular starters, I mean, that's a game changer. That what you could do is for depth, because That's when you look at certain teams, when you get to these midweek games or you get to towards the end of the season, and you could still be able to sit some guys and rest them and then still get results and rest your guys up for the playoffs, because we've seen what Miami has done over last season. I mean, they were exhausted. And they don't have right now, they also don't have a ton of kids that they can play at the moment. And that's like what we were talking about on MLS Monday. What happens to Miami here? And the next, because last season they were basically able to chill out like the last month of the season because they already got the supporter shield. They had the number 1 seed. So were you going for the record? Like that was the only thing that they were really trying to do. Set the record for points, or do you rest your guys and get them ready for the playoffs? And they did a combination of it, but still, that team looked extremely exhausted. So if you can get some kids in here, that's really the depth that you need, because I still feel like Atlanta United, every year we say, oh, they have good depth. And I think we fall for it, because then we start finding out as we get later on the season that that depth is just not where we were hoping it was going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, I actually think this is one of the deeper teams that we've had, but the difference between the starters and the depth is really close at a lot of positions. And so I think, when you feel frustrated with the starters at some of these positions, and then you have the reserves come in and get similar results, that's part of that. But on paper, this should be one of the deepest central and defensive midfield groups that we've ever had. It's same thing with fullback as well, with the amount of guys you can plug in at left and right back. So theoretically, that should work. And when you look at it from a financial standpoint in a capped league, all of these homegrown guys are free players. And so they're providing immense value because they don't count against the cap. None of the supplemental roster does. And so the teams that, like Philadelphia, who are able to effectively use their supplemental roster spots to not only take up a ton of minutes, but create a lot of value on the field with that, are basically, almost hacking the game at that point because they don't need to spend money across the entire field. They can focus on really targeted signings.
Yeah, and Connor puts here, I'd sign quantity of depth for every position, then than a superstar. But that's the one thing about MLS. I mean, you got your DP spots, so you can go sign those superstars. Like you got those spots. If you have them, you use them. Absolutely, you need to do that. And the one roster mechanic that we really haven't used, I think maybe we are still broken mentally, is the U22 spots, because we were the first team to have 4. We made it cool. We made it really cool. It was on accident, but we ended up having 4 U22s there. So you talk about the summer, maybe the lack of room that we have, but the U22 spots, absolutely, we can start going out and getting some guys immediately.
Absolutely, and it won't kneecap our ability to address other needs on the roster as well, because that's only $200,000 against the cap when you bring in one of these guys, and that's not counting whatever transfer fee that you pay for them. Just as long as we're keeping them below the senior maximum salary, then we can pay whatever we want as far as transfer fee for these guys, and we've got them locked up through, I believe, their age 25 season.
Would if you were looking at U22s, would you immediately look at the wing? Is that like your first place you're looking at?
Yeah. I mean, if you can bring in a guy with upside who you can give a very clear and simple role, like out on the wing, I think that's a good place to plug them in. We kind of did that with Barco as a young DP, and we saw the conflict there. But if you can get a guy who, like Pedro dos Santos or one of these other guys from Argentina who are able to plug in at the left wing and just excel there. So like a Cade Cowell kind of guy, if you're looking at the U.S. side of it, that would be extremely useful, because that would fill a role. It wouldn't take up a lot of resources, and you could still sign another veteran or trade. The intra-league cash trades are going to be a huge deal this year, and I'm excited to talk more about that as we get closer to the summer window.
Yeah, you were already excited about it when we talked about it on Spaces. Would you, if this started a little bit earlier, would you not have signed Alexei Marinchuk and then just went out and threw cash to get Evander from Cincinnati?
Or from Portland at that time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm thinking Lucho. Sorry, uh, going out and getting him that was a game changer. There, it was just unfortunately we were just too deep into what they were trying to do there. And then instead you go get Miguel Almiron and Latte Loth. But I mean, that's going to be the question. And, promote Doug Roberson's article. He did talk to Garth Lagerwey. So if you are a subscriber, go check it out. We're not going to do any spoilers. We won't do that to you, Doug. We love you. But I mean, it was a great article, at least as far as talking to Garth and trying to get an idea. But I mean, basically, just one of the things though that said in the air right at the beginning, it was the free portion, so I'm not spoiling it, is that it seems like everybody's safe. And obviously that includes Henderson, which he hasn't had a chance to do anything. So that's obviously very obvious there. But Ronny Deila, I mean, it's pretty much saying that he's safe there. Now, I've talked about this before. I don't know if I fully agree on just saying that someone is safe at this point, because you don't know what's going to happen here, and you don't know how ugly this road trip is going to possibly get in the next month. But man, it's going to be very difficult, because every time he comes out for the post presser, he just looks a little bit more sad every time. Like, I feel for him, and like we started saying this about Pineda too. Like, Pineda would come out and he was defending the players for a while, and then it was just a sad puppy dog. It looked at sometimes, and like my first time ever being in the press room after the Columbus game, I think, and there was no one on that team, but still they got absolutely destroyed. Like, he just looks so sad. I'm like, okay, I know this is professional, but come here, Pineda, just bring it in. Like, it's going to be okay. Things are going to get better. It didn't get better for him, but still, it's like, what else can you say? Because he's throwing the right things out there. He's not protecting the players, Ronny Deila. I think he's saying a lot of the right things, that they're not mentally tough. This team needs to be tougher. Like, everybody that watches these games say that. But when you see this in any sport, the NBA, NHL, NFL, when you see these coaches say the same things over and over, that means the performances aren't good. And then that usually means that, unfortunately, whether it's their fault or not, they are not answering that question anymore because they are no longer there. And that's what I'm wondering, is how bad can it get that Ronnie D is still safe in Atlanta? And that's the question that everyone's going to be asking. And some of that comes from peer pressure as well, from the fans. Like, if it's empty, or maybe, I mean, because if you have fans that are booing, that's one thing. But when it's empty, like, that's an absolute worst thing. And we saw that last summer during the Leagues Cup. I mean, that place was empty. I said this before, but we're the advertisement why nobody liked Leagues Cup that year. People were like, "Oh, this is how much people love Leagues Cup. Look at Atlanta." And there's a couple ushers in the aisle and Gray watching the game, and that's it. Like, those are the only people there at the game. And like, it's like, okay, they're going to have to make a move here. And they did. They eventually had to make that decision there. And I don't envy Garth on having to make that decision. But you got to hope for Garth and for Ronnie, you start getting some type of results, something. Because if you finish last, now I know there's the Galaxy who are in last, and they gave their coach a 100-year extension. I don't know what the extension was, but I mean, you saw how fans reacted to that. Like, people like were just joking about, like, how is it that the bottom of the table and they get an extension? Now, a lot of people don't. The people that are complaining about that don't understand the situation the Galaxy have been in to start the season, and obviously what they just did at the end of the year. But still, like, that's just something that's like, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, and I mean, for the record, I'm a U.S. Open Cup fan, not a Leagues Cup fan. So
Oh, I know.
I was not watching that cup last year. Just no interest whatsoever in that the set of friendlies that kind of cut off mid-season there. But yeah, I think we have to, and I hope the players are looking at this the same way, that everyone's auditioning for a job next year. I think that's the key. You've got two windows with a lot of guys who are on option years or have one more year after that, and um, everyone should consider this an opportunity for them to show that they belong on this team next year, or that they want to show well enough for whoever their next team is going to be. And so, hopefully that's a good motivator for the next month and a half.
Absolutely. Well, you know who is going to be at the game? I always like these transitions. I try to make them clever. I usually fail. But there's one guy I know that is going to be there, and that is I think one of our first guests that we ever had, and he might be a four-time guest now, 3 or 4, but that is Jake Zivin.
Hey
Jake, how's it
guys,
going?
I'm
Hey,
glad
well,
I've been on enough that it's not just easy off the top of the head, like to be like, hey, this is how many times he's been on. I'm the same way. I don't know. Happy to be here. I will be at the game on Sunday. This is true.
Well, before we get started about the game, I want to ask you about Sunday Night Soccer
Okay,
because,
yeah.
well, it was announced that it was happening, as
Mhm.
the schedule was coming out, and I think a lot of people got really excited for it. What was the concept of it? How it was going to work? Were you going to have a cool singer singing the opening song like you have Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, right.
I'm still waiting for it. I'm still waiting for the
Dochi,
cool intro.
maybe. Dochi's got like the MLS, like she's blowing up every month even more. So yeah, come on, Dochi, let's do a Sunday Night Soccer theme.
So maybe year two, get a little bit more
Yeah,
money in the
maybe.
budget, and we'll get a singer. Gray sings as well, so if you need Gray, he'll do that.
All right.
But
Yeah.
how has it? How has everyone loved it? At Apple, like, has it been positives all around?
I think so, right? I mean, look, I can only speak from our end and our perspective of it, the people calling the game and doing it every Sunday night, and it's been wonderful to be able to fully focus on one game with an hour-long pregame show, right? With Andrew Wiebe on the sideline for us, getting interviews, and make it feel like a big game every week on Sunday night that hopefully fans, supporters from around the league can tune into, not just Atlanta and Cincinnati supporters, right? But now everybody has a chance to do it. It's something that I think was desired by a lot of people the past couple of years. I love the excitement of Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern until 12:30 a.m. Eastern, right when the West Coast games end. But now with 15 games a weekend, with 30 teams, there's still room to have that, and also some kind of standalone games that allows people to take in more of the league. And so, yeah, I think it's been great. I've heard really good things from everybody, both inside and outside of the project, that people like it. Hopefully everybody does. Hopefully you all and all of your listeners and viewers have enjoyed it if they've tuned in on a Sunday night after Atlanta plays on Saturday. This will be Atlanta's second time on Sunday Night Soccer this year. The first was that Miami game. It's very different for Atlanta this time, right? Our kind of framework of how we're going to talk about Atlanta on Sunday Night Soccer this Sunday and on Countdown for an hour before, very different from it was in March when it was that rematch. But yeah, I think overall it's been really positive. I've loved it. I know Taylor and Andrew and Sammy and Diego on the Spanish side, and we've all really enjoyed being able to kind of dig more into one game and have it feel like a bigger production.
Yeah, last week I was like rivalry week, even though we played Philadelphia for some reason. I loved it. It was the Miami Orlando game, and then it
Yes.
shifted right into the El Trafico. I mean, those were both. I mean, I know I say the Miami game was great because I think a lot of people were happy to see Orlando win that game. But then
Fair.
but the Trafico
Even in
was
Atlanta, hold on.
amazing.
What about Atlanta supporters? You guys are supposed to hate Orlando, right? Orlando was the villain before any other teams existed in the Southeast.
I don't disagree. But I
Yeah.
think Messi's become the cool guy to boo at
Fair.
this point for a lot of teams. So,
Hmm.
but I swear you're reading my notes because I was going to talk about that because last time you were at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it was a different situation. It was a
Yeah.
rematch of the playoffs. Everyone was excited. Atlanta was looking good. They weren't great. They weren't maybe
Sure.
getting the results, but it looked like they were about to turn on at any time.
Yep.
Now we're just trying to get the light switch halfway on.
Yeah, it's remarkable, right? I mean, that game was what, the fourth of the year. Looking back on my notes, and so yeah, he had 1 win, 1 draw, 4 points coming into there, and it was very much still in. There's a ton of optimism, right? Still in that sense of like, we're waiting to see it all come together. Almiron, Latte Lot, Miranchuk, this is going to be great. We've seen it a little bit in the first 3 games, and we're waiting for that to be like every minute of every game. That's going to come because they're great players and it's early. Now, yeah, right. I mean, of course, there's questions, big questions. To me, it's the most perplexing story of the season, more than the LA Galaxy. The LA Galaxy, yes, their start is poor, but there's a lot of reasons. It's the worst start in the history of a league for 14 games, but there's a lot of reasons for it. It kind of makes sense. Certainly makes sense that they would struggle. Not to this point, but still struggle. For Atlanta, it is. I'm not necessarily surprised that they allow some goals. I'm surprised they're not scoring goals. I mean, it's been 8 games since more than 1 goal, since a multi-goal game for Atlanta. With this attack, it's wild. It's shocking, to be honest. And there's still time to turn it around. MLS is, of course, a really forgiving format. And I'm sure there's still a lot of hope within Atlanta that, like, hey, these guys are going to gel together and figure it out. But we haven't seen it yet, right? And so, yeah, that to me, it's perplexing as to why it's taken so long, why it is still taking so long.
Absolutely, and I think what you're talking about there was actually what Tommy and I were talking about right before you hopped on there. It's how there's so much underperformance from the big spending teams this year. You see, Galaxy, you see a slide from Miami right now. People are asking a lot of questions around that. And you've got Atlanta trying to figure out, how to fit together. So Miami's going to get the first crack at potentially using the transfer market, at improving things with this special one for the Club World Cup teams here. And then we're going to have to wait until later in the summer with the Galaxy. But
I want a special window. Make it a special window.
Exceptional window, right? I think is which is funny because it's an exception, but it's also funny to call it an exceptional window given how we use the word exceptional in American English. Right?
So I'm curious, how big of a storyline is it for you, this intra-league cash trade system that's going to make it feel a lot more like the baseball deadline, and where teams have a lot more flexibility if they're big spending teams to make these mid-season turnarounds?
Love it. I think it's meant so much to this league, and you guys, we all, but Atlanta supporters specifically, are going to see maybe the best example of it on Sunday in Evander. Cincinnati went out and spent $12 million on a guy who was a proven special player in this league for what he did in Portland, and obviously well publicized, very public. I don't think it was totally beyond repair with Portland and Evander, but it was not in a great place. And so obviously both sides are looking for a solution to this. And in the past, the only solution would have been to sell Evander to another league, to a team in another league. Maybe that's Brazil. Maybe that's, maybe that's back to Europe, right? Maybe it's a Mexican club. However, like now with cash for player now, it allows a special player like Evander to stay in the league. And Cincinnati went and they made an offer, and the Timbers, it was worth it. It made sense for all parties. Timbers had a replacement in David DaCosta ready, who's done well in Portland. I think both teams are better, Cincinnati and Portland. And because of this cash for player trade, a mechanism that a year ago it would have been impossible for it to happen. So yeah, it's great, right? I think it's going to benefit Atlanta because Atlanta's a big spending team. And so Atlanta will not be shy to say, that guy over there is a great player. He's a great player in this league. We want him. Let's go get him. And it wouldn't have been possible in years past. But obviously spending outside the league, that's not Atlanta's problem, right? I mean, they spent $45 million in the offseason. And you mentioned the big spending teams struggling a bit. Cincinnati is the opposite of that. They're a big spending team that's doing well. And to me, that's the story of this game. It's the two teams that spent the most in the offseason. I mean, Denke was the most expensive transfer in the history of the league until Latte Lot signed a couple weeks later with Atlanta to break that record. So they spent $30 million, Cincinnati did in the offseason in Denke and Evander. And Atlanta spent between, going back to Moranchuk, $45 million on Moranchuk, Almiron, and Latte Lot. It's worked wonderfully for Cincinnati, and it has, obviously not for Atlanta. So that the kind of duality of that is, to me, the storyline of this game on Sunday night.
Well, think how different Atlanta United could have been if they made this rule in the mid-season last year. Because, I mean, you maybe don't bring in Alexa Miranchuk and you just go and throw some money at Evander. And
yeah.
And
but look, I mean, they could have. I mean, here's the thing, though. They could have done that in the offseason. I don't know, right? But I mean, Evander was available. You heard Dallas, you heard Cincinnati, and I'm not saying it was the wrong decision to go Almiron and Latte Lot. I don't think it was. No, I'm not questioning that decision. But they still could have, right? If they wanted in on the Evander market, so to speak, they could have gone there. But yeah, like I agree with you wholeheartedly. Sorry, where I cut you off, but where you're going with that is that it's gonna benefit Atlanta.
Well, and like you always hear the thing about, okay, this player's new to MLS. They've got to get used to it.
Yeah.
What's that transition time? It could be anywhere from a couple months to a full year. Like, oh, let's give him a full year in MLS and see if he goes. But if not, like you got Acosta and Evander, and you just throw them into the lineup and they're good to go. And that's absolutely huge. And I'm curious if teams start doing that more, like, you have like trade deadlines. Like you always feel like the trade deadlines there. It's like you're getting a guy to ramp up. Like now you could see these instead of going outside. I mean, in the middle of the season,
I hope so. Guys. Right? I mean, I hope so. I'll say this. I think it makes the league more interesting, and I think it makes the league easier to follow if it's that way, right? I do think, because it's something that Americans are not used to, when the majority of the signings in this league are from overseas, right? And those are players that the American fan is probably unfamiliar with, unless it's a Messi, a Suarez, a Jordi Alba, right? But like, how many people in Atlanta really knew a lot about Alexi Miranchuk? No doubt there were some, and there are probably some Atalanta fans, maybe some because they like the name, right? And maybe some because they're big Serie A people and they get it and they watched him and they know who he was. But of the 50,000 that are going to the Benz, it's a small percentage, right? Meanwhile, if the Atlanta Hawks make a big trade, or even in rumors to trade, every Atlanta Hawks fan is going to know all these guys that are being talked about. Or when the draft comes around, they're going to be familiar with these, maybe not, all the names, right? You got some guys from overseas. You got some guys who played like for G League Ignite, but the college stars, everybody in Dallas is excited for Cooper Flagg, and they haven't even drafted him yet because they know who he is. And that helps. That helps keep year-round interest. I think that helps fans stay excited. And that's something that, this cash for player trade market will help that. Obviously, like soccer is a world market, and it will always be that way. And so MLS teams are always going to be signing players that are playing overseas, that are maybe less familiar with, that the supporters are less familiar with. And at some point, MLS will be on par with the big leagues in Europe. And so they will be in these discussions for household names. But until then, you're still going to have this, not an issue, but it's going to always be like this. So yeah, the cash for player market for sure. I think creating that excitement at a deadline, when now we're talking about guys that Atlanta United supporters have seen play in person and watch every weekend and know how good they are, instead of Googling a name that is, put out by Tom Bogert or, Doug Roberson or something, and like, who's this guy? And finding a YouTube highlight compilation of 5 minutes of 15 seconds each. Of course, he's going to look great, because anybody can make a highlight compilation of any job in the world. And, no matter what you do, if you're an accountant, if you're a teacher, if you're a lawyer, if you're anything, you can make a highlight compilation that makes you look great in little snippets, and you're going to be excited about it, but you're not going to really know the player. Now you will, and that will, I think, again, just help ramp up the excitement around the league. And it's a really good thing. It's good for supporters, and it's good for the league in general.
Well, you're talking about the NBA, and also take it the other way. Look at last year, Atlanta drafts Richeche, number 1, French guy. Nobody knows who he is.
For sure. Yeah,
the exact same thing.
That's why the draft. Yeah, I was like, the draft isn't really analogous anymore. Not as much as it used to be when we were all growing up, right? And you knew everybody because it was the big college stars in the draft. It's different now.
Well, you talked about Denke and Latte Lath. What are your thoughts of both of them coming into the league so far?
Yeah, look, I mean, Denke has, uh, I don't want to say like Denke has settled in better because they're in different situations. Obviously, I think both are great players, no doubt, great signings, great for the league. Latte Lot started out well and hasn't scored in 7 games. I think, is that right? He's in a bit of a drought now. Denke continues to score, right? Is that the system, right? I mean, if you put Latte Latte on a Cincinnati team, and look, I should say, when it comes to contrasting Cincinnati and Atlanta, you've got a Cincinnati team where the core of the group has been not only together, but been at the top of the league for several years running now. And Pat Noonan and the coaching staff have been there for several years running now. So you're taking these two top players in Evander and Kevin Denke, and you're putting them into a pretty well-oiled machine and a group that has chemistry and a system that's working and everybody knows each other, and you're just adding these kind of high quality pieces, luxury pieces to a group that's in good shape. Atlanta obviously, isn't in that situation. Coaching change in the offseason. Yes, it was a phenomenal run at the end last year, and everybody was, there was so much momentum off of that, but there were always going to be changes in the offseason. So there's a little more instability coming in Atlanta for Latte Lot. And so maybe his impact is going to be, a little more up and down. But yeah, I think both are great players. Denke is, man, he can do it all. He's big and strong and fast, but he's technical. Scored a wonderful goal this past weekend. His bicycle kick is the one that, against Kansas City, is the one that's going to make all the highlight reels. I mean, he can do it all. Very good player, and he's going to score a lot of goals for Cincinnati, and he's going to be tough for Atlanta to defend against this weekend.
Well, Atlanta's allowed a goal from the striker, I think, for the last 4 games, because I just keep throwing a little bet on that every time, because it just keeps happening.
Yeah, and look, that is maybe not as, I kind of said this earlier, like that maybe isn't as surprising. They spent their money on the attack and the defense, and that's MLS, right? Like there's a lot of just the way that the structure of rosters work. If you're going to put a lot of your resources into the attack, which most teams do for good reason, you're going to maybe be a little vulnerable. You're not going to have the depth in the back line, and you're going to have to figure that out. So I'm not as surprised that, they're allowing some goals. It's just that they're not scoring goals. I'm surprised that Atlanta hasn't been winning games 3-2, 4-2, 3-1 this year. That to me, that's the question. That's kind of the perplexing part of Atlanta United in 2025.
And I think that's the big question for us too, is we're just barely missing. It's hitting the post or it's going just wide, and just over and over, we're so close to breaking through.
Especially early, right, in games. And that can change things. I mean,
Absolutely.
look at the Philadelphia game. I mean, Chare has that header in, I don't know what, in the middle of the first half. And he puts it just wide, point blank. He thought it was in. Everybody thought it was in. He scores that goal. The game's different. But then, right, halftime hits, it's scoreless. Maybe the doubts creep in. I mean, Atlanta, we were, our production crew for Sunday Night Soccer was looking this up. I think that they're being outscored 10-1 in the 15 minutes after halftime. And the rest of the game, it's like a -1 goal differential, right? But 10-1 right out of halftime. So, you start, like you get to you miss your chances in the first half. You get to halftime 0-0, and then maybe those doubts creep in the locker room. Uh-oh, here we go again. And then here they go again. And it's happened a lot this season.
And you've seen this a lot just in working with Portland, and then in the various other ways of following the game. Teams just get stuck in a funk. It's something that's mental, and just in covering the game, what have you seen from other teams that have worked their way out of something like this? What have you seen work?
Yeah, I mean, look at Atlanta last year. Look at what Rob Valentino did this year when he came or did last year, right? As the interim manager. Man, I mean, like he figured out a way to spark that group, to get that group playing together, playing with heart, playing with intensity, believing more than anything else, playing for themselves. And it was brilliant. And so look, I'm not saying that's a solution for Atlanta right now. I think they're 14 games into a new coach. So that stuff takes time. It takes time to to kind of all learn the system and gel together. I think you probably wish that they had, maybe we're looking a little more like it at times, but I guess we just said it. You point to the first. I didn't think the first half against Philadelphia was bad. Like, I think they got a lot of what they wanted. They had some decent chances. Almirones threw on goal early in that game as well. Rick was good, made a good save. Rick made a great save on that Amador shot that was deflected. It could have been 3-0 at halftime. But then for whatever reason, right, as kind of that game goes on. So yeah, I think some results help big time. This is a big opportunity for them against a really good Cincinnati team, and you get some confidence and then you pull out of it. It's a long season, right? And that's the thing with MLS. We've seen it so often in MLS. Atlanta last year is the best example. Again, you get hot at the end, make a run into the playoffs, and you can do something special.
And along those lines, reserves have played a big part in this. Fortune was a big part of the turnaround last year, and we saw a great game out of Will Riley in his debut against Cincinnati last time. Which reserve players are you looking forward to potentially seeing this time, and maybe claiming a role over some of their more high paid teammates?
Yeah, look, I kind of defer to you guys in that regard, right? I'm not going to claim to be an expert on 1 through 25 in Atlanta yet. I've got to go back and watch the first meeting with Cincinnati to refresh me. I watch it when it happened, but to refresh myself on it in these upcoming days. I think if Atlanta's going to come out of this, it's going to be with the big name players, though. I mean, you have to, right? Like, it's going to be Almiron, Latte Lot. Moranchuk figuring out the best way for him to be effective. When you spend that much money on a player in this league, they have to be effective. You have to figure it out. I really like Sabalob Janitze and have for years. He provides something different. He provides a spark. But obviously Ronnie Dyla is trying to figure out the best way to put this team on the pitch. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's difficult, but I tend to think that if Atlanta's going to pull out of this, and if Atlanta's going to be the team that everybody expects them to be this year, it will be the big name players. It's not going to be, somebody that's further on the depth chart now that's going to, all of a sudden step up and change things for Atlanta United.
Well, Jake, I mean, you've called a lot of Atlanta games, especially because of the playoffs and all that.
Yeah.
Like, Saba has been the thing that has shocked me, I think, the most, because he can't even get into the starting lineup at this point because they've tried him on the left, and that didn't work out early in the season. Hasn't scored a goal, but Miguel Almiron, he's not working. They're not trying him at the 10, so he's got the right set there. And you've seen Saba play. Like, that guy is just fully energized, just goes to goal, creates chaos, and without him in the game, like, I think that's my biggest frustration so far this season, is just not being able to see enough of him. Because if you really think about it, over the past year and a half since he's been here, he's pretty much been the MVP of this team during that time span.
Yeah,
besides Brad.
Sure, right. Besides, Brad in that playoff series for sure. Oh, I agree. It was interesting seeing him come on at that right wing back spot. I was not surprised when Brooks went down that's what it was. He's played there a little bit before, obviously. I don't know if that's the ideal way to set it up, but maybe it is a way to get him and Almiron on the pitch together. Is you play Saba as a wing back. Cincinnati plays with 3 in the back, right? I mean, they play the 3-4 kind of 1-2 or 3-4-2-1. So you match their system and you go a little more attacking with Saba. I don't know about Brooks and his status, obviously. So maybe that's a solution. But yeah, for me, Atlanta's best moments last year, right? It was Saba time, and it was him kind of taking some moments on his back. And MLS to me is a league where, like, you need your special players to have match winning moments, particularly in the playoffs. But like, when you think of the best teams in MLS right now, and just going back, like, they all have special players that just took moments and put the team on their back. Joseph, right? Miguel in the first time, like, those, Atlanta had those guys. Columbus has Ed Cucho. LAFC has Denis Bouanga. Miami has the greatest player of all time, who they can look terrible and then they can be up 2-0 in 5 minutes because the greatest player of all time puts the team on its back. So you need that from your team. And Saba showed, I thought, an ability to do that at times, right? And again, in their best moments, it was him, I thought, last year. And so, yeah, I like him. And, I think there's probably a way to figure that out, to get him on the field. But again, Ronnie Dial's tried a lot this year, hasn't he? And it hasn't quite all worked.
He's tried everything in the book. I think it just, we see his post game conferences, and I just feel so sad for him. He just looks a little bit more sad each game. So just get this guy a win. Just get this guy a win.
Yeah, it's got to be tough. Look, he can do it in this league. I mean, he won MLS Cup, right? So, I think he'll figure it out. I think Atlanta will figure it out, but it's obviously taken a lot longer than most people would expect. And I imagine there's frustration in Atlanta amongst the supporters because of that. For
sure. Well, Jake, we appreciate you coming to hang out with us. Tell Mr. Twellman we see his tweets after every game. He always posts a video of something bad that happens in an Atlanta United game. I was tweeting him last week trying to get him on.
Hey, that's a badge of honor for you guys. He likes to poke the bear, right? And so he likes to go after the big clubs with the vocal fan bases, So there you go. He's going at Atlanta. He has high standards for Atlanta, as you all do, as everybody does, as everybody should, as Atlanta does for themselves.
Absolutely. Well, have a good call, sir. Enjoy Atlanta.
Thanks. Looking forward to being there on Sunday, and hopefully a good game at the Benz.
Us too. Have a good one.
See ya.
Well, it's interesting to have everyone come on here and talk about the team, and everyone's different views of this, but everyone's just like, it's sad. Like, this team needs to be better. And I said this last season, and I haven't said it at all this year, but I think it should be said, is that I think that this league, because I think there was a comment earlier about it, is that the league is better when Atlanta is good. And like some people got upset when I said that, but like, think about football. Like, when Tom Brady and the New England Patriots were the best team out there, it was good because the Patriots were good. And when the Patriots were bad, like, all of a sudden when they came back down, when Tom Brady left, it was like, okay, well, we can't show them. That's not one of our teams anymore. So in Atlanta, like, showing 70,000 people at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, showing the full tifo in the entire stadium, all the things that you have, is a great advertisement for MLS outside of this country. Like, oh, damn, they did that. They filled that stadium up. Did you hear how loud they were when Sean De Silva scored that goal against Miami? Like, these are the things that, like, the league needs there, because, yeah, I mean, you have some very good fan bases out there, but like, this one is one that packs the stadiums, and when it's empty, and when you're not able to get them on as many primetime games, because I think Sunday Night Soccer is a very good representation of the league. But what's going to start happening is what happens in the NFL for, Thursday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, is that they throw the best teams out there now. There used to be a rule that you had to play every single team on there. MLS doesn't have that rule right now. But we've got 2 primetime games because they obviously thought that they were going to be a better team than they were to have them on here. Now, Miami's always going to be a team that's going to get a lot of them. And the LA's, like, they're going to be ones, the New York's there, but Atlanta's got to get it going. I mean, it's good for the league, and I just don't know. Like, they got to do something here to turn it around. And Victor, I saw your comments in there about, sticking up for Ryan Dial and all that. Like, I've put blame on literally everyone in the organization at this point. That there is not one person in this organization besides, as far as I know, Chris Henderson's pretty much the only one that hasn't really been able to have his hands in on anything in this situation, because obviously, like, Garth has brought in the coach, Garth brought in the players, the DPs, like, that was all coming together before Chris Henderson started coming in. That was all in the works, I think, as far as my understanding of it. So obviously he's a very large part of this. And then Ronnie, as far as getting them ready for success and everything, absolutely, that always comes on the coach. Absolutely. But then it's also the players as well. Um, they've got to be able to do what they want, and it's really there's no one to not blame in this situation. Chris Henderson, we love you. Bring us players. If you want to blame him for getting rid of Sean De Silva, like I've had people argue that with me. Look, the guy wasn't doing anything while he was here. Like they gave him some starts. Yeah, he's had a couple nice goals throughout the seasons that he's been here, but as far as consistency goes, if you can get rid of a player to open up some space for the second half of the season, because I think this was his last year, and there was just an option for him. Is that right, Gray?
Let me look real quick. Want to make sure I'm saying the right thing, but
You don't always say right things here, but it's nice to fact check.
yeah. I think he had an option year with one more to go, if I'm remembering right. But yeah, he was still with us potentially in 2026.
Yeah, so like if you could get rid of him off the roster while you can, just to free some stuff up, I'm all for it here because you don't know if someone's going to want him in the next window. So just move on from him.
Absolutely, and I think that yeah, it makes sense when you can to be able to move players when they can bring value back to the team. And we got a tiny bit for Silva, but at least we didn't have to use a buyout like with ATN. And I think that's something they'll be looking to do over the summer before we reach the end of the season, when we've got a lot more flexibility around player options. And I'm seeing Connor talk about getting rid of 11 players. So if those 11 players are on options and you don't want to bring any of them back at the end of the year, you can just decline their option in November, and that's getting rid of 11 players there. So so yes, it is legal under certain contract rules. So we might see a substantial turnover here this winter if things keep going the way that they do. But to your earlier point, I think you're absolutely right. MLS is better when the Benz is rocking, when the train horn's blowing, and when we're having fun in Atlanta. And I think it's the same deal where you don't want to see the Galaxy down. You don't want to see Miami struggling, because that's bad for the league. I love watching Vancouver. I love watching Columbus. These smaller market teams do well because they play really fun soccer. But at the same time, we're MLS sickos. We're not the people who are just watching the big names, the big teams. And so I think there is something to be said there. And I think it'll be interesting to see how the league kind of messes with the system to try to help the big clubs out again.
Kind of put MLS is worse when Charlotte wins, and then changed it to better. Maybe he just felt bad there. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be the next 2 weeks are absolutely huge, because these are the last things that you are going to remember of Atlanta United until after we celebrate the 4th of July. Like, that's really how you got to look at it. The team doesn't come back for quite some time, and you want to give them something to end this homestand with, something to remember and to want to come back here, because the road has not treated Atlanta United well at all over the years. Now it got a little bit better under Valentino. We got some performances, but you still need to be able to show off in front of the fans. Like, if you can go to a game and enjoy the environment there, but if it's a boring product and you're not involved, then why would people want to come back here? And last year it was Pineda out everywhere, and that was I mean, there was some signs that were on TV on occasion about it. You had fans with paper bags over their heads at times, and like, that's just bad. That looks bad on the league, and especially when you're a team that watches that. And look, you say Valentino and Bruno appears. That's always how it works with this guy. Here's Valentino. Hey, he just he shows up in spaces. He shows up here. That's literally just how it works with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's they're going to have to do something here, because the season ticket renewals are coming up. And with that usually comes the other thing that was very, very telling last season was the increase. The increase of the tickets. I just so happened to be there that weekend when the fans were protesting. They had white shirts, they spray painted, a bunch of things on it. They were against it. And at that time the product was pretty bottom of the barrel. Now they ended up coming back and beating Columbus in that game, which was wild that they were able to do that. But still, it was a lot of people backed out saying this was not a good product. And then a lot of them were very happy that they stayed on because Miguel Almiron came on. And then they were like, all right, I made the right decision. This team's we're back up and you're doing worse now than what you did last season. So it's going to be I am very interested to see how they handle this season ticket renewal, because so far, at least the buyback program, which I love the concept of what they have done for the season ticket holders. You can't make a game, sell it back, and I think it goes into your credit for next season. Like, that's an absolutely fantastic thing that you can do here. But I've been hearing a lot of people have been turning in a lot of tickets there, and that, if I'm looking at that as the front office, that's obviously not a good thing, because they're just basically just moving it and moving that credit to next season, so they have to pay less next year. So I don't know. I don't know what they have, but like that's everything that Garth Lagerwey has to deal with. That's not, this was maybe something Darren Eales and the rest of the front office dealt with, but like Garth, he's used to dealing with the players. That's bringing players in, managing the roster. Now he's in a completely different world. He's the president of this team. And I think you were on Spaces when we talked about it on Saturday, was that, a couple people were calling for Garth Lagerwey. We had Will from Elmos Moves that was on there talking about that. And it's like, nobody knows if your president is not Garth Lagerwey. Is David Beckham the president of Miami?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure if that's a ceremonial position or if he actually is,
Yeah,
in the
because
office
he's not
day to
doing
day.
anything.
Yeah.
But like, unless it's one of those two names, most people
Mhm.
can't even name the team president. So they don't think about that. They blame the general manager. But unfortunately, Garth Lagerwey has been a life general manager, and now he obviously built this team, built a large part of it himself, and now he's handing it over to Chris and saying, you deal with it. But now these are the things that you got to deal with: keeping the fans happy, helping making the decisions here on how to handle these season ticket renewals and buybacks and all that. And man, I'm sure it's glorious to run that when you're in the top of the table. But when where you're at, where Atlanta is, man, I do not envy the things that he is going to have to deal with for the next 6 months.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think his perspective is one that I think I share, and I think members of our team also share. It's that it's extremely important for us to have consistency of a cohesive leadership group and shared vision for at least a few windows and a couple of seasons, because we've dealt with so much turnover, so much inconsistency, and so much of a changing set of members of this leadership community and vision of what this team is. And I think we're seeing that in the roster. We're seeing that in the contracts we're getting out from under. We're seeing that in a team culture that doesn't feel like one culture. It feels like several different groups that are kind of mishmashed together in one roster. And if we can give this group that has been brought together basically since the fall a chance to make clear decisions, a chance to build the roster based around the vision, the theory of how they want Atlanta United soccer to work, then I think we've got a chance there, because we've seen a consistent vision coming out of the academy, just from Tony Annan to all the way up through our current lead with Javier Perez as the director of methodology. And you've seen the mental strength, the talent, the capacity of the players to step up and come in from the academy when they get the shot. And so what I would really like to see is something that actually looks like they've got a clear plan and they're able to work on it for a few different windows instead of having these false starts.
I agree. Well, let's get to predictions here. You're the newbie on Wednesday, so I will let you go first.
Well, I'm being optimistic, and I hope that Atlanta is able to score a goal this time. I think that would be great. I am not confident that we can avoid Cincinnati scoring more goals than us. So at the moment, I'm looking 2-1 Cincinnati for this one.
That's exactly what I said as well. 2-1. I do think Atlanta gets a goal there. Like we said earlier, it looked like it was getting better. They have concepts of a plan. They are at least trying to. They're getting in scoring chances. They're just unable to do it. I do think they get one, but I do think that Cincinnati. I mean, again, the question that we asked before, Jake jumped in is how does Cincinnati handle this game? Now, it would make sense for this team, especially when you have Miami struggling here, is you want to get as many points as possible. So I assume they probably put as many players in the starting lineup as they can now, rest guys on Wednesday, and then play their guys the following Saturday. That's my thought on it. At least that's what, in my mind, what they should do. We did ask everyone else. Sydney said 2-0 Cincinnati. Henry was just copying him and also said 2-0 Cincinnati. And Tyler is being the optimistic person, and he is saying 1-1. Which, if that was it, I mean, I would take that. Obviously,
Absolutely.
like, there's gonna be someone in the chat that says, "What have we become that we're happy about a 1-1 draw?" Look, I get it. I absolutely get it. I'm not doing backflips about a 1-1 draw here, but progress would be progress here. I mean, looking at some of the predictions here, I mean, own goal bags a hat trick
I love that.
and we win.
I love
Like
that. Yeah.
that would be amazing. Victory says 2-1 Atlanta. Okay. 2-0 Cincinnati.
I love seeing Owen Gold continue his campaign to be the leader of this team in goals. I think that would be great if our team leader was Owen Gold.
I want to see someone, and someone's going to do it, I'm sure. But there's someone out there that has own goal as like a jersey,
Absolutely.
like on the back of it there. Bruno is he's got a newborn at home, so he's probably lacking sleep. He says 4-1 Atlanta. It's okay, get some sleep there. Omar saying 6-1 Cincinnati. That's my holy shit prediction of the night. But if that happens, the bags against Orlando, they'll be giving out bags at the door to put on there. Oh man, if that was happening. Team says 3-1 Cincinnati. And this is a good throwout. If we have another dumbass penalty, I mean, do you remember a season where we've given up as many penalties as we have?
I remember seasons where we've had more go our way.
Absolutely.
That was a big part of our MLS Cup season is the amount of PKs we were taking that year, and something that I think as long as we can keep Brad in his box and not running out after balls, we might be okay. Because the amount of weird things that have happened the last few years when Brad is running out to challenge for a ball with his feet outside the box, he was having a great game until then for the most part. And I'm just glad he didn't get a red card again, like last year when he tried the same thing. But let's have the defenders pick him up and make sure he doesn't need to do that again.
Absolutely. Donald says 3-1. Kareem 2-1. I mean, Jack says 2-2. Getting a little bit better. Is Brad cooked? No, Brad's not cooked.
No.
I mean, he does make mistakes. He's done that forever there, but like that game could have been 2-0 at least before that play even happened. They might not even have to even make any substitutions at half the way that was. And again, it was with a lot of their backups, but still he made some pretty big saves there.
Yeah, he did. I mean, there were some of those that you don't see a lot of players making some of those saves too. And this is a guy at 40 doing some of that. So if he's given us that at this point in his career, I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know what everyone's frustrated with this. This is obviously a huge opportunity for Atlanta. This either goes one or two ways. You're the main game of the week. You're on Sunday Night Soccer. You're just getting back from the Signia, hanging out with the whole Scarves and Spikes gang, except maybe both of us. But you're going to head over there. Hopefully, you're going to see a good game there, because sometimes the bright lights can make teams play a little bit better, and maybe we'll get that prime time momentum coming in here, and hopefully getting a win. But yeah, I mean, you got anything you want to finish up with, Gray?
I just, at this point, if we know that Ronnie's probably not going anywhere, I think we just need to focus on where growth happens, where improvement happens. And if we're looking at, which guys are showing they want to be here, I think we take the small wins where we can, and just try to have enough perspective to not get too depressed about how this team is going. That's what's getting me through this, frankly, is looking to the future. So I think we've got a lot of opportunities over the next couple of windows, and I'm excited to see who's trying to stay, and who's trying to show that they're good enough to stay.
Omar put in here, why is Brad so quiet when the team needs a leader? I mean, I know that they have the kids talk a lot during the weekly meeting or the weekly conferences, what did you see on YouTube. I mean, Brad's been historically one of the ones that they always have out there talking. Like, I know when I've gone to games, Brad's like the first one out that they have on away games. I don't know what the situation is. I don't, I've seen situations they say, these players are available to talk. We're bringing them out. Some players just might not want to, might not just say it's not for me. But I mean, you've seen these videos for Atlanta United. Brad's the talker in those meetings in the locker room, and those are ultimately probably what's the most important. Talking to Doug and talking to Henry and Tyler and Sydney and everyone else is, yeah, I mean, that's important, but really I think it's what's important is what's said in the locker room from there. Honestly, I mean, I agree, for you being the twos guy, I'm sure it's nice for you to hear that these kids, coming out and talking about the game. I think that everyone talks about leadership. I think that's like everybody keeps saying, who's the leader? Who's the leader? If the situation is these kids are volunteering to talk to the media after a game that was absolute crap,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, bravo to them, because I shouldn't be expecting them to do that. But if they're volunteering that time, if that's how that situation is going down, I think you got some real good ones, coming up here soon.
Absolutely. This is their hometown team. A lot of them would probably stay here, for their entire careers if they didn't have ambitions of going overseas. And so, good on them for putting this team on their back and saying, this is us. This is us using our voice to speak and to make this our club, instead of just deferring to some of the older players.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, again, go hang out the Signia, hang out with those guys for the game. If you see Tyler, tell him that he owes you a shot, and then I sent you. He'll get you one, maybe. Again, hang out with us on Patreon, the Discord. Gray and I are working on a twos video here. We promise we'll get you. We're doing weekly rants, so I know these guys are busy, so I'm gonna rant about this team. So last time I did it at my office at work, so I wasn't allowed to say many swear words. So maybe I can at least try to get a count of 3 in there. So we'll work on that. But yeah, come hang out with us in Discord. It's fun. We talk about everything, playing video games. We have video game meetups, playing Call of Duty, trying to get a Mario Party thing going here. So if you're big on Mario Party, come hang out. We'll do one of those. Again, thanks to our sponsor, Sweetwater Brewery. Rowdy IPA. I can't get it here in Ohio. Unfortunately, I'm hoping they send me some. But if you don't like IPAs, I don't either, but it's still legit. Drink that. I have an empty. I smuggled the bottle or the can back from Atlanta when I was there early in the year. But again, thanks for hanging out, coming back. We will be back on Sunday for if you want to check out what's going on at the Signia. We'll have that live on YouTube. Come hang out with me, maybe Gray after on Spaces on Sunday night. I didn't know it was Memorial Day until like a couple days ago that I have a day off on Monday. So that's exciting. But if not, then come hang out with us. I don't know if we're doing MLS Monday on Monday, but we'll figure it out. But until then, you got anything else you want to say, Gray?
We've covered a lot today. I think just looking forward to hopefully seeing this team turn around in the future, so we can actually have some fun and not just have weekly therapy like we have for a while now.
Hell yeah! And we don't charge copays here.
No, your insurance is good here, but just don't need it just yet.
Yeah, I don't. Do you? I can't hear the music. I don't know if anyone else is hearing the music or not, but I miss it now that I can't hear it. But just everyone on here, I keep seeing the Taylor Twellman comments. They hasn't been on here for a while. We are trying. Oh, Team Put Great Lakes Brewery is pretty great. It's absolutely amazing. I go and eat there about every couple of weeks. But back to Taylor Twellman. My tweet got a lot of likes a couple games ago, trying to get him on the show. But we are working on that with him, because I think someone put that he hasn't been on with who was it? Since Aruju was here, and that's been a long time, and that was also a very bad time. But yeah, we'll get it. Oh, no one's hearing the music, so they're just hearing me talk without music, and I'm hearing the music in my head, like do 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 do. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna hit end. You guys have a good Wednesday, and we'll talk to you soon.